The scalding coffee dripped down my face and neck as steam rose from my now ruined white sweater. My sister Catherine stood over me, the empty mug still tilted in her manicured hand, her perfect red lips curved in a satisfied smirk. "That's what you get for trying to show off your success," she sneered, setting the mug back on the Thanksgiving table with a sharp clink. Across the massive dining room, our parents continued eating their turkey and stuffing, acting as if their youngest daughter hadn't just assaulted their oldest. Mom delicately dabbed her mouth with a cloth napkin while Dad focused intently on cutting his meat into precise squares. "Someone needs to get her off her high horse," Catherine continued, smoothing her designer dress as she returned to her seat. "Coming here in her thrift store clothes, pretending she's made something of herself." I remained silent, feeling the coffee burn against my skin. The thrift store sweater was actually a hand-knitted piece that had sold out worldwide within hours of its release. The simple silver chain around my neck, which Catherine had mocked earlier, was worth more than her entire wardrobe. But they didn't need to know that. "Not yet, really dear," Mom finally spoke, not looking up from her plate. "You should know better than to mention your little online business at family gatherings. It's uncomfortable." Dad nodded in agreement, still focused on his methodically cut turkey. "Your sister has a real career in finance. She doesn't need to hear about your internet hobbies." I carefully pulled my phone from my pocket, checking for notifications while wiping coffee from my face with a napkin. 6:47 p.m. Right on schedule. At least I didn't waste everyone's time with some long-winded story about my promotion. Catherine preened, reaching for her wine glass. "Assistant Vice President of Regional Operations sounds so much better than I sell things on the internet." The dining room was filled with our extended family, aunts, uncles, cousins, all pretending they hadn't just witnessed the coffee incident. Aunt Margaret, however, couldn't resist adding her thoughts. "I told your mother years ago," she said between bites of cranberry sauce. "Letting you skip business school was a mistake." Look at Catherine, following the traditional path, making the family proud. I checked my phone again. 6:48 p.m. "What are you looking at?" Catherine snapped. "More orders for your little handmade crafts." My voice was calm despite the burning sensation on my skin. "Actually, I'm waiting for a news alert. Should be any minute now." The massive television mounted on the dining room wall, Catherine's insistence that we needed to watch football during Thanksgiving dinner, suddenly switched to breaking news. Perfect timing. Breaking news: global luxury conglomerate, Apex Industries announces historic acquisition. Fashion giant House of Laurent has been purchased in an unprecedented all-cash deal. The room fell silent except for the clatter of my mother's fork hitting her plate. "But that's impossible," Catherine stammered, her wine glass frozen halfway to her lips. "House of Laurent is worth billions. Nobody could just buy them outright." I stood up slowly, coffee still dripping from my ruined sweater. "Actually, someone could." "Someone did," the television continued. "The acquisition, valued at $12.4 billion, was completed by Apex Industries, a relatively unknown luxury holding company that has been quietly acquiring high-end brands over the past 3 years. Apex Industries." Dad finally looked up from his plate, his face paling. "I've never heard of them." "Of course you haven't," I replied, pulling out my tablet. "We prefer to operate discreetly. Would you like to see our portfolio?" Catherine lunged for the tablet, nearly knocking over her wine. "We? What do you mean we?" The screen displayed a complex corporate structure, with Apex Industries at the top. Below it were dozens of luxury brands, fashion houses, and high-end retailers, now including House of Laurent. "You see," I continued, my voice echoing in the stunned silence, "while you were all mocking my internet hobbies, I was building something. Those handmade crafts, limited edition pieces that sell for 5 figures each. That little online business. It's now the fastest growing luxury e-commerce platform in the world." Mom's hands were shaking as she reached for her wine glass. "But the money required for such acquisitions, $12.4 billion, I finished for her. "Cash, no financing needed. Want to see the bank transfer?" Aunt Margaret grabbed the edge of the table, her jewelry rattling. "This is absurd. You live in that tiny house, drive that old car." I pulled up another document on my tablet. "You mean my tiny house in the most exclusive gated community in the state? Or perhaps you're referring to my car collection." I turned the screen toward them, showing photographs of my actual residence and garage. The color drained from Catherine's face as she recognized the property. But that's the old Morrison estate. They would never sell. They did sell. To me, last year. I smiled slightly. I also own this house, by the way. Bought it through a shell company when Dad's investments went south 6 months ago. Dad surged to his feet, his face red. That's a lie. I never sold this house. Check your records, I replied calmly. The holding company that rescued you from bankruptcy. That's one of mine. I own the mortgage, the property, and technically, even the furniture you're sitting on. The room erupted in chaos. Cousins who had been snickering at my crafts were now frantically Googling Apex Industries. Aunts who had dismissed my career choices were whispering urgently among themselves. Uncle Robert, who had bragged all evening about his luxury car dealership, looked like he might faint, probably because he now realized his business's parent company was one of my recent acquisitions. Why didn't you tell us? Mom whispered, her perfect makeup failing to hide her shock. Tell you, I laughed softly. Like when I tried to tell you about my first successful design line. You said it was sweets that I was playing with fashion and then spent the entire dinner praising Catherine's entry-level bank job. I walked to the head of the table, commanding everyone's attention. Or maybe when I offered to invest in Dad's struggling business 2 years ago, Catherine said, and I quote, "We don't need handouts from someone who sells trinkets online." The television continued displaying details of the acquisition. Financial analysts were now discussing Apex Industries' history of strategic acquisitions and market dominance in the luxury sector. While you were all focused on maintaining appearances and climbing the traditional corporate ladder, I was building an empire. I turned to face my sister. By the way, that promotion you're so proud of. I own the bank you work for. Catherine's wine glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the expensive hardwood floor. What are you talking about? Global Financial Partners. I acquired it 6 months ago through a subsidiary. Didn't you wonder why there was suddenly a major management audit happening? The implications slowly dawned on her face. Years of belittling my work, mocking my choices, and now assault with hot coffee, all directed at someone who now controlled her career. Monday morning, things will change, I continued. New ownership will be announced. New management structure. New corporate culture that doesn't promote people based on family connections. You wouldn't dare, Catherine hissed, but her voice trembled. You can't just fire me. Fire you. No, that would be too simple. I pulled up her performance reviews on my tablet. But I can ensure you're transferred to our new division in Alaska. I hear Anchorage is lovely this time of year. I let the weight of my revelation settle over the room like a heavy blanket. The remnants of Thanksgiving dinner lay forgotten as my family tried to process how dramatically their world had just shifted. The Burns mom suddenly said, as if just noticing the angry red marks on my neck and face, "We should get you some medical attention." I touched the scalded skin gently. Already taken care of. My personal physician is waiting outside. Has been since Catherine arrived with that extra hot coffee she specifically requested from the kitchen staff. Catherine's eyes widened. You knew I would. Throw it at me. I finished for her. Of course, you've always been predictably vindictive when you feel threatened. The staff told me you insisted on having it heated to nearly boiling. I pulled up the kitchen's security footage on my tablet, showing Catherine demanding the coffee be reheated 3 times, testing the temperature with a satisfied smile. That's invasion of privacy, she sputtered. In my house, with my staff. I raised an eyebrow. They've been working for me since I bought the place. Did you really think they were still loyal to this family? Dad finally found his voice again. The mortgage, the holding company, how did we not know? Because you never bothered to look, I replied, taking a seat at the head of the table. His former place. Too busy maintaining the illusion of success to notice you were drowning in debt, too proud to admit you needed help. The security footage continued playing, now showing clips from the past 6 months. Dad making desperate phone calls to investors, Mom selling her jewelry piece by piece, Catherine bragging to friends about her promotion while maxing out credit cards. Everything you own, I continued. The cars, the clothes, even that designer dress Catherine's wearing. It all belongs to companies I control. You've been living on borrowed time and my money for months. Aunt Margaret stood up, her voice shrill. Now see here, young lady. You can't just come in here and what? I cut her off. Take over the family's precious status symbols. Too late. I already own the country club you're so proud of belonging to. Bought it last month when their financial troubles became too much to handle. The room fell silent again as my tablet displayed document after document, proof of just how extensively I'd been buying up their world while they weren't paying attention. But your little craft business, Catherine's voice was barely a whisper, was just the beginning. I nodded. Those trinkets you mocked, limited edition pieces that sell for more than your annual salary. That online hobby you laughed at now controls 30% of global luxury e-commerce. My phone buzzed with a message from my medical team waiting outside. They were concerned about potential second-degree burns from the coffee. I forwarded the message to my legal team with a simple note: document everything. What are you going to do? Mom asked, her hands clutching her napkin. About all of this, I surveyed the room slowly, meeting each family member's eyes. Changes start Monday. First, Catherine's transfer to Alaska, then Dad's retirement, effective immediately. The house will be renovated and converted into a design institute for underprivileged students. You're throwing us out. Dad's face reddened again. No, I replied calmly. I'm giving you exactly what you gave me, the chance to make it on your own. You'll have 3 months to find new housing. Your remaining assets will be enough for a comfortable but modest life. Catherine stood up so quickly her chair fell backward. You can't do this. We're family. Family. I touched my burned skin again. Like when you threw boiling coffee at me, or when you all sat here and continued eating pretending nothing happened. The security footage played on, showing their indifferent reactions to the assault. The images were damning. The footage has already been sent to the police. I added. Assault charges will be filed tomorrow. Unless what? Catherine demanded. Unless you sign a full confession, resign from the bank immediately, and accept the transfer to Alaska. Your choice. Mom began to cry, her carefully applied makeup creating dark streaks down her cheeks. Please, we can work this out. We're still family. Family works both ways, I replied, standing up. For years I tried to be part of this family, tried to share my successes, offer help, maintain connections. You chose status over relationship every time. My phone buzzed again. The medical team was insisting on treating the burns. I gathered my things, preparing to leave. One more thing, I turned back to them. That new design institute I mentioned. It'll be named after Grandma Rose. The name hit them like a physical blow. Grandma Rose, the only one who had supported my dreams, who had taught me to sew, who had left me her old sewing machine when she died. The same grandmother they had mocked for being common and unsophisticated. She would be so proud, Aunt Margaret said quietly, surprising everyone, of what you've built, not just the success, but the purpose behind it. I nodded slightly, acknowledging the first genuine thing any of them had said all evening. The institute will provide full scholarships, housing and job placement. Everything she wished she could have had. As I reached the door, Catherine called out one last time. Wait, what about fixing this? Making things right? I turned back, studying my sister's desperate face. You had years to make things right. Instead you chose to heat that coffee to boiling and throw it at me. Actions have consequences, Catherine. It's time you learned that. The medical team rushed in as I opened the door, immediately beginning to treat my burns. Through the doorway, I could see my family still sitting at the ruined Thanksgiving dinner, their world crumbling around them. Sometimes I reflected, the best revenge isn't just success. It's success with purpose. They had tried to scald me into submission, not realizing they were only forging me stronger. A week after the Thanksgiving incident, I sat in my office at Apex Industries headquarters reviewing the fallout. The burns on my face and neck were healing well, leaving no permanent scars, unlike the emotional ones my family had inflicted over the years. The press coverage is extensive. Sarah, my chief of staff, reported as she entered with the morning briefings. But not in the way your family probably hoped. She pulled up various news headlines on my office wall. Luxury empire CEO survives family assault, turns pain into purpose. From handmade crafts to billion-dollar empire, the rise of Apex Industries, fashion's new queen. How one woman built a luxury dynasty in secret. Catherine's confession, I asked, touching the healing skin on my neck. Signed and submitted yesterday, Sarah confirmed. displaying the document. She's accepted the transfer to Alaska. The assault charges have been dropped as agreed. The confession was detailed, describing not just the coffee incident but years of systematic bullying and sabotage. It would never be made public. I wasn't interested in revenge through humiliation, but it would ensure Catherine understood the gravity of her actions. And the bank, the management audit is complete. We've uncovered 17 instances where Catherine received promotions over more qualified candidates due to family connections. Sarah pulled up more documents. Her immediate supervisor has been terminated for accepting bribes from Dad to fast-track her career. I nodded, unsurprised. What's the status on the house conversion? The blueprints for the Design Institute appeared on the screens. The mansion's pretentious formal rooms would become classrooms, workshops, and design studios. The massive dining room where Catherine had thrown the coffee would be transformed into a collaborative workspace. Construction begins next week, Sarah reported. The first class of students has already been selected, 50 talented designers from underprivileged backgrounds. Full scholarships, housing, and mentorship programs are in place. My phone buzzed, another message from Mom, please reconsider. Your father's health is declining. The stress of moving is too much. I showed the message to Sarah, who pulled up Dad's recent credit card statements. He seemed healthy enough to play golf yesterday and book a luxury cruise last night. Some things never change, I murmured, deleting the message. What about Aunt Margaret? Sarah's expression softened slightly. She's been different since Thanksgiving. She's applied to volunteer at the Design Institute, specifically requesting to work with the scholarship students. That was unexpected. Background check, clean, and her application essay. Sarah displayed the document. She wrote about Grandma Rose, about realizing too late what real success looks like. I read the essay carefully. Aunt Margaret described how watching me name the institute after Grandma Rose had forced her to confront her own prejudices about status and worth. She wrote about remembering how Grandma Rose had always valued creativity and kindness over social standing. Keep an eye on her, I decided, but let her volunteer. Maybe some good can come from all this. The screens shifted to show security footage from the mansion. Workers were carefully packing up the family's belongings, separating what they could keep from what belonged to the holding company that now owned everything. Your mother's jewelry collection? Sarah asked. Let her keep the pieces Grandma Rose gave her, I replied. The rest goes to the Institute's historical costume department. A soft knock interrupted us. James, my legal counsel, entered with fresh documents. The bank's board of directors has approved all changes, he announced. Catherine's transfer is official. The new management structure will be announced Monday, and Dad's investment portfolio, liquidated as instructed. The proceeds will provide them a modest income, enough to live comfortably in a small condo, but not enough to maintain their previous lifestyle. I walked to the window, looking out over the city. Somewhere out there my family was packing up their lives, finally facing the consequences of their actions. Miss Chen, Sarah's voice was hesitant. There's one more thing. We found something in Catherine's office files at the bank. The screens displayed emails dating back years, correspondence between Catherine and various family members, plotting to undermine my business from the start. She tried to block our early loan applications, Sarah explained. Used her position to discourage investors, even attempted to have our e-commerce platform blacklisted. I read through the emails, feeling a fresh wave of hurt. While I had been working 18-hour days building my company, my own sister had been actively trying to ensure I failed. She never understood, I said quietly. Success isn't about pushing others down. It's about lifting yourself up and bringing others with you. Speaking of lifting others up, James interjected. The first scholarship recipients are here for their orientation tour. The security feeds showed a group of young designers entering the Apex building, their faces filled with hope and nervousness. Each had been hand-selected not just for their talent, but for their determination to succeed despite obstacles. Show them everything, I instructed Sarah. The design labs, the production facilities, the innovation centers. Show them what's possible when someone believes in their potential. As my team left to conduct the tour, I turned my attention to the latest designs from our luxury brands. The coffee burns had inspired a new collection, Phoenix-themed pieces rising from flames, each telling a story of transformation. My phone buzzed one final time. Catherine, I'm packing for Alaska, happy now. You've destroyed everything. I studied her message, thinking about the difference between destruction and transformation. Then I sent a single reply. I haven't destroyed anything. I've simply created something better from the ashes of what you tried to burn. The screens showed the scholarship students now touring the design labs, their eyes wide with possibility. One girl stood at a workstation, running her hands over a sewing machine similar to the one Grandma Rose had left me. Sarah, I called through the intercom. Make sure that student gets her own sewing machine. Actually, make sure they all do. Like Grandma Rose did for you? Sarah asked softly. Exactly. Sometimes the smallest acts of faith have the biggest impact. I touched my healing neck one last time, feeling not the pain of the burns but the strength they represented. My family had tried to scald me into submission, to keep me in what they saw as my proper place. Instead, they had only proven why I needed to succeed, not just for myself, but for every other person told they didn't belong. The Phoenix collection would launch next season, each piece tagged with a simple message, "From flames we rise." 6 months after the Thanksgiving incident, I stood in what used to be the mansion's dining room, the scene of the coffee assault. The pretentious space had been transformed into a bright creative workshop, where 50 students were now pursuing their dreams. Miss Chen, a young student approached, clutching a design portfolio. I wanted to show you something. Her name was Maya, and she reminded me of myself at that age, talented, determined, and previously told by everyone that her dreams were unrealistic. She opened her portfolio to reveal sketches inspired by the Phoenix collection. It's about rising from adversity, she explained, her eyes bright with passion. Each piece tells a story of transformation. I touched the now faded marks on my neck, completely healed but serving as a permanent reminder. Tell me more. As Maya explained her designs, I noticed Aunt Margaret working quietly with another group of students.
Yes.
She had proven herself dedicated to the program, spending every day mentoring young designers and sharing the wisdom she had gained from her own transformation. Sarah appeared with the morning updates. Catherine's first performance review from Alaska came in. Would you like to see it? The report showed my sister struggling to adjust to actually working for her position, rather than relying on family connections. But there was something else, notes about her volunteering at a local women's shelter, teaching basic business skills to domestic violence survivors. Interesting, I murmured. Monitor that. If it's genuine, already verified, Sarah confirmed. She's there 3 nights a week. The shelter director says she's different. Humbled, the screens around the workshop displayed current projects from Apex Industries' various brands. The Phoenix collection had broken all previous sales records, resonating with people in ways we hadn't expected. Your parents? I asked, though I already knew. Living in the condo, Sarah reported. Your father's trying to start a small consulting business. Your mother? She paused. She's enrolled in community college classes. Fashion design. That was unexpected. Mom had always dismissed design as beneath her, preferring to buy luxury rather than understand its creation. She left this for you. Sarah handed me a letter. Security screened it. It's safe. The letter was handwritten, something Mom had never done before. Dear my name. I'm learning to sew. It's harder than I ever imagined. My fingers are constantly pricked, my lines are crooked, and I've ruined more fabric than I care to admit. But each time I sit at the machine, I think of you, of how you must have felt, learning alone because we wouldn't support you. I think of your grandmother, my mother-in-law, who saw what we couldn't, or wouldn't. The sewing machine I'm using now, it's the basic model they give to beginners, nothing like the professional ones you've provided to your students. But it reminds me of the one she left you, and how you built an empire from that humble beginning. I don't expect forgiveness. What happened at Thanksgiving was inexcusable. We watched our daughter assault you and did nothing. We deserved to lose everything. But losing everything made me find something. In my design class, I'm not Mrs. Chen, social climber and status seeker. I'm just another beginner, learning to create rather than simply consume. I saw your Phoenix collection. I understood the message. With humility and love, Mom, I set the letter down. Emotions I thought I'd buried, rising to the surface. Sarah, have one of our professional sewing machines delivered to Mom's class. Anonymous donation. Are you sure? Sarah asked gently. Yes, but make it just the machine. No extras, no privileges. Let her earn the rest. Around us, students continued working on their designs. Maya was now helping another student refine a pattern, sharing her knowledge freely, something my family had never understood the value of doing. Miss Chen, James entered with fresh reports. The first graduates from our emergency scholarship program are ready to launch their collections. These were special cases, talented designers we'd rescued from abusive or toxic situations, given them safe housing and education. Each had a story of rising from their own flames. Schedule the showcase, I decided, but not in a traditional venue. I want it here, in this room. The same room where Sarah started, where Catherine threw the coffee. Yes, I smiled slightly. Let's transform one more thing. The plans came together quickly. The showcase would feature 20 designers, each rising from their own adversity. The guest list would include industry leaders, media, and by my specific request, my family. They won't all come, Sarah warned. Some will, I replied. The ones ready to learn. On the evening of the showcase, the former dining room glowed with creative energy. Where once there had been pretentious family dinners, now there was authentic celebration of talent and perseverance. Aunt Margaret helped coordinate the student designers, her natural leadership finally finding worthy expression. Mom sat quietly in the back, taking notes on construction techniques. And there by the door, Catherine watched the proceedings with an expression I'd never seen before: respect. When Maya's collection closed the show, her phoenix-inspired pieces drawing gasps of appreciation, I took the microphone for a rare public speech. 6 months ago, in this room, someone tried to scald me into silence. I began watching Catherine flinch. They thought burning me would keep me in my place, but they forgot something crucial. Heat doesn't just burn, it transforms. The room was silent, hanging on every word. Look around you. This room, once a symbol of exclusion and pretense, is now a workshop of dreams. These designers, once told they didn't belong, are now defining the future of fashion. And me? Those burns taught me that transformation isn't just about personal success, it's about creating spaces where others can rise. I touched my neck one final time, feeling not scars but strength. Tonight we're not just launching collections, we're launching lives. Each designer here has faced their own fire. Each has chosen to rise. And that's what true luxury is, not the price tag on your clothes or the size of your mansion, but the ability to transform pain into purpose. After the show, Catherine approached me. She looked different. Alaska had stripped away her artificial polish, revealing something more genuine. The shelter women, she said quietly. They're starting a small business, making accessories. Would Apex consider carrying their line? I studied my sister carefully, looking for any trace of the old manipulation. Found none. Have them submit through proper channels, I replied. No special treatment, but if their work is good. She nodded, understanding. That's fair, more than fair. As the evening wound down, I watched Maya teaching Mom some basic sketching techniques. Aunt Margaret was discussing sustainable fashion with a group of students. Even Dad, who had slipped in late, was quietly observing, his usual bluster replaced by thoughtful attention. Sarah appeared at my side. The phoenix rises. No, I corrected her, watching my transformed family interact with the future they had once tried to prevent. We all rise. Some just need more heat than others to learn how. The burns had long since healed, leaving no visible scars, but their legacy lived on in every student we taught, every designer we launched, and every life we helped transform. Sometimes, the greatest power isn't in hurting those who hurt you. It's in creating something so beautiful from the pain that they're forced to recognize their own capacity for transformation. That's the true meaning of rising from the ashes. The end